Much like milk and honey, the video game news and rumors are flowing this morning, and there are two stories that I definitely want to talk about because I find them very interesting. The first story we're going to talk about is the PlayStation 5. There's some heavy rumors going on about the PlayStation 5, talking about unveiling of the system, what the system is going to be all about, and now a game potentially moving from PS4 to PS5 as a potential launch title for the system. And then we have to talk about Nintendo. Of course, the Nintendo Switch's online service has been decent at best, but it looks like they're finally doing something major to improve it, including a major system that a lot of people have been anticipating coming to the platform. So what's going on with Nintendo? What's going on with Sony? That's what we're going to talk about in this video. So sit back, relax, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, and let's talk about everything that's going on in the world of video games.
Hey, RGT85. Hey, Sean.
Oh my God, it's Stevie Richards! So first and foremost, the PlayStation 5 is a topic we haven't really covered all that much on this channel. I've made a video or two about the PlayStation 5, but really there hasn't been much to talk about when it comes to the system. Sony has been keeping their cards at hand. We don't really know what they're doing with the PlayStation 5. There's been some rumors about different things going on, like there's going to be a heavy focus on VR. After the somewhat success of PlayStation VR and the PlayStation 4, it looks like Sony's ready to take that next step and incorporate PlayStation VR very heavily into the PlayStation 5 if rumors are to be believed. But we really don't know much about the PlayStation 5 beyond that. While we've heard rumors and rumblings about what Xbox is going to do, PlayStation hasn't really said much, but they don't really have to when you look at it. After dominating the console market in this generation, PlayStation is definitely at the advantage. They can take their time with this system. They don't have to show all their cards at once. And the PlayStation 4 still has some major games coming out to it. You of course have games like The Last of Us 2 and Death Stranding. But now it looks like the PlayStation 5 rumor mill is finally starting to heat up. Now, from the bowels of the internet, we have a report that there's going to be a big PlayStation 5 event taking place in February of 2020. Now, usually this would be something that I probably wouldn't report on, but many major websites, such as GamesRadar.com, are starting to pick up on this story, so I'm thinking maybe these other websites have heard things about this story and potentially giving this story credence and some credibility. But basically, what's going on with the PlayStation 5 is there's going to be a big unveiling during February of 2020, where they're basically going to show off the system, show off what this system is capable of, talk about things like the controller, the hardware of the system, and of course talk about games and integrated PlayStation VR. But what's interesting about this is it looks like there may be a PlayStation 4 game that a lot of people were somewhat anticipating could be being moved to the PlayStation 5 because of developmental issues, and that game is Ghost of Tsushima. Now, honestly, from what I've seen of Ghost of Tsushima, I really enjoyed this game, and we've seen it a couple years now for the PlayStation brand, and it looked like a really solid game, but it definitely looked like a game that could lend itself to a next generation system. When you look at what's really left for the PlayStation 4 with major games like Death Stranding and of course The Last of Us 2, I think Ghost of Tsushima is the game that would benefit the most from being delayed. You don't really want to delay something like The Last of Us 2 to the PlayStation 5. You could have some PlayStation 5 integration with it, of course, but you don't want to delay a big game like that. Death Stranding, of course, already has a release date, so that's a game that we're not going to see get delayed. But Ghost of Tsushima has definitely been the one game out of the PlayStation lineup that we really haven't heard all that much about in comparison to the other two games. So I can see this game potentially moving over to the PlayStation 5 development cycle, and I don't think many people would be too upset with that. There's still a lot of great PlayStation 4 exclusive games coming out, and with the system winding down, I think if that game has to be a casualty as moving to the PlayStation 5, then that's the game that it should be. Now, of course, there are other rumors that another Sony State of Play event is scheduled for November as well, where they're basically going to show off their holiday lineup, and there may be some teases and surprises about what's going on with the PlayStation 5 in that as well. But I actually think that's kind of interesting because you got to remember the last two State of Play events were kind of like back to back. They sort of just rifled them off pretty quickly, so to wait until November is kind of interesting in my opinion. I've actually been expecting another Sony State of Play event just because of how frequently they were doing them initially, but now it seems like this next State of Play event may not take place until November of this year. But I really am looking forward to the PlayStation 5, honestly. I know we don't talk about the PlayStation 5 all that much on this channel, but I think that's going to change once the system actually comes out because there's going to be so much stuff to talk about. The hardware specs of the system, what games are coming to the system, what exclusives are announced for the system, and of course, what this system is actually capable of. Will Sony play it safe? Is it going to be a true advancement for video game home consoles? It's going to be a very exciting 2020, and I expect the coverage for the PlayStation 5 and the subsequent successor to the Xbox Xbox One to be very heavy on the channel, but I'm definitely looking forward to this. But what do you think about this rumor? Do you think this rumor is true? Do you think we're going to see a big PlayStation 5 unveiling during February of 2020? And is Ghost of Tsushima going to be delayed onto the PlayStation 5? Or do you think it'll be a simultaneous launch with maybe additional features for the PlayStation 5? Definitely let me know in the comment section down below, because I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say about this. But of course, the bigger of the two stories, well, at least on this channel, has to be the fact that it looks like finally, Super Nintendo games are coming to the Nintendo Switch's online service. Now, it's been a very rocky road for the Nintendo Switch's online service, let's be honest. When the service was first announced, it was said that NES and Super Nintendo games were going to be coming to the system. It looked like data miners actually found all of the Super Nintendo games that would launch on the Nintendo Switch's online service. And then things got quiet, and we started getting NES games, which are great. I love the NES. But as time has gone on, the quality of the NES games has definitely dipped. I know a lot of you guys out there really love games like Clue Clue Land, Mighty Bomb Jack, and the famous Solomon's Key, but for me, I feel like there's better games that could be on the system. I want these Super Nintendo games. Honestly, I want all of the Nintendo lineage consoles because there's so many awesome games on there, and the Switch is obviously powerful enough to run most of these, if not all of these lineage consoles. Why do we have to wait? But obviously, as time has gone on, the Nintendo Switch's online service has been getting dogged and dogged more and more. Of course, the inclusion of things like Mario Tennis Aces for free has definitely spruced things up a bit, where you can play Mario Tennis Aces for a week, but the service is in dire need of an injection of adrenaline to make people excited, to make people want to get the Nintendo Switch's online service if they have not picked it up yet. Well, it looks like that adrenaline shot is finally coming, because there's been a new filing with the FCC for something that should look very familiar for you, and that's a Super Nintendo controller. Now, of course, Nintendo has the NES controllers for the Nintendo Switch's online service. If you are a member of Nintendo Switch's online service, you can pick up these NES controllers that are fully compatible with your Nintendo Switch and allow you to play your NES games in a traditional NES style. So that was a cool thing. I honestly never picked it up because they came in packs of 2. I just sort of wanted one of them. But now we're seeing it with the Super Nintendo. And what's interesting about the filing of this patent with the FCC is that it has a filing of BKE HAC-042. Now, all previous Nintendo Switch related wireless game accessories have had that HAC in it as well. So a lot of people are expecting this controller to be compatible with the Nintendo Switch. And if Nintendo is making a Super Nintendo controller for the Nintendo Switch, well, I mean, they're including Super Nintendo games, clearly. It's probably going to be the same way that we saw with the NES controllers on the Nintendo Switch. And honestly, it's about damn time. Let's be honest here. The NES games have just been getting more and more paltry and paltry. There's so many awesome NES games to choose from, but obviously there's a lot of things like licensing involved with these games. Would companies like Konami really want to put the Castlevania games on there when they want you to purchase the Castlevania collection on the Nintendo Switch, with games like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle games? Obviously, Ninja Turtles is owned by Nickelodeon now, so there's a lot of licensing and things tied up with that, and that's why we've been getting awesome games like Clue Clue Land. I don't understand that game. But the Super Nintendo library, obviously there's many heavy hitters. When you look at things like the Super Nintendo Classic, all of those games, Nintendo was able to get the licensing for those games. And of course, Nintendo would probably do something similar to what we saw with the original unveiling of the NES service for the Nintendo Switch Online, where they dump like 20 different games on you, so you have a variety of games to choose from. Of course, you have games like Super Mario World, Donkey Kong Country, Star Fox. Like, there's so many awesome games for the Super Nintendo that I think people would want to revisit and people would want to play. And since Nintendo is applying for the patent on this controller, more than likely I can see this being towards the end of 2019. Maybe around October or November, they announce that Super Nintendo games are coming to the Nintendo Switch's online service, which would help bring in holiday customers. With all of these people picking up a Nintendo Switch or a Nintendo Switch Lite with the holiday season, people will want to play Super Nintendo games. They don't want to just play Clue Clue Land and Solomon's Key. So I think this is a big benefit for Nintendo. It's definitely something that's been a long time coming, but it looks like it is finally coming. So better late than never with this. I'm definitely very excited. Let me know in the comment section down below what Super Nintendo games you would like to see on the Nintendo Switch's online service, and would you be picking up these controllers? Me personally, I don't know. I might pick up these controllers, as Super Nintendo games do require more buttons than something like the NES games do, and I think it would be cool to have these in the collection. But let me know if you would be picking picking them up in the comments down below. Alright, so those are two stories that I definitely wanted to talk about, definitely heating up the internet, and definitely very exciting stuff. So let me know in the comment section down below what you think is going on with the PlayStation 5. Do you think this leak is potentially real? Do you see Ghost of Tsushima being a PlayStation 5 game and moving development from the PlayStation 4? And would you be okay with that, with other games like Death Stranding and The Last of Us 2 still being confirmed for the PlayStation 4? And of course, what do you think of Nintendo finally incorporating Super Nintendo games into Nintendo Switch Online? It's been a long time coming. It's definitely been a highly requested feature, and it's definitely something I'm happy to see, and hopefully Nintendo continues this with more of their lineage systems. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Be sure to check out other videos on the channel. Be sure to check out the Friday the 13th review. That game just released today. I was playing with some people over in Europe last night. Had a blast playing it online. A super fun game. I definitely recommend it. And as always, guys, I will catch you guys on the next video. Later.